Hi, welcome to the Business Growth Journey podcast with me, Nick Termini. Today we've got an awesome guest, Jeff Janda. Jeff, welcome to the show, man. What's up?
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to have you on and share your story. But first, Jeff, how do we know each other? How do we meet?
We met what, 5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. You reached out to me on LinkedIn and you noticed I had started a new business and wanted to grab coffee. So
Yep.
we met at Lenexa City Center there and had a cup of coffee and talked for at least an hour or so, and it was great.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, I'm fired up to have you on and share your story. But first, let's get to know you a little bit. Where'd you grow up? Just tell us about things you
Sure,
did. What was school like? That kind of
sure.
stuff.
I grew up in Topeka, Kansas. Played high school golf. Fell in love with golf at a young age, and ended up getting pretty decent at it. To where during high school, my mom would even take me around for tournaments like the Kansas Amateur. That took me to
Cool.
places like Salina and Dodge City and Garden City. You wouldn't think there'd be two really nice golf courses in Garden City, but there are Buffalo Dunes and Southwind there. So, but yeah, that golf was everything for me in high school, which led to allowing me to play in college a little bit as well.
Awesome. And so as you were growing up, what are some of the lessons that you learned from golf? And I mean, golf is a never-ending game of lessons, right?
This
But
is
it
true.
it does help shape a young mind as well. Like what are some of the things that you still carry with you from golf?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was fortunate enough to have folks that we belong to Topeka Country Club, and being part of the junior golf program, learning the rules of golf, the etiquette of golf, and then not only that, getting a chance to play with other members who were lawyers and doctors throughout the community of Topeka. So just being able to spend 4 hours with them let me understand that everybody puts their pants on the same way. Nobody is really kind of any different. A lot of those docs and lawyers would treat me the same as they would anybody else. So I learned that at the end of the day, we're all the same. So it was definitely life lessons to play rounds with those individuals for sure.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, that's the same advice my dad would always give me growing up, but it's one thing to accept the advice, it's another thing to
Right.
actually apply it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And so like how did you learn to, be able to network or befriend or just get to know basically anybody, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of funny. Once I got into the kind of my real world, my real job,
yeah.
meeting with executives or meeting with hiring leaders and things like that, which I'm sure we'll probably get into. For me, the intimidation factor necessarily wasn't there because I was hanging out with a lot of these individuals, outside of the hospital, out on the golf course, or maybe if they were coming over to my folks' house for a party or something, I was just used to talking to them. And so then when I eventually started working out of college, for me, I was like, oh, I'm just going to go meet with Dr. So and so. And to me, there wasn't that intimidation factor that a lot of
Yep.
times there can be for others when they're going to meet with someone who higher up within the organization.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And it's true, right? Like if you're able to show up without the intimidation factor, you're able to have a deeper relationship, but also bring more value.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
then
Absolutely.
you're your real self, right?
Right. Yeah. Correct. 100%.
So what else in high school? Did you work in high school at all, or just putting a lot of
You
time
know,
in on the
I,
golf
I
course in
worked a little
school?
bit. Yeah, I worked a little bit at Topeka Public Golf Course, but like I said, a lot of times during the summertime, I was out playing golf and playing in different tournaments. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to work. My parents, I think, saw that how much I loved golf and that I was pretty decent at it and potentially could be playing in college. So for me, I was just practicing a lot in the summertime. So the only real job that I had was Topeka a public golf course, which I was a cart boy picking up the range,
Yep.
getting there very early on a Saturday morning to pull all the carts out and those types of things. So I did that a little bit my junior and senior year, but most of the time I was on the golf course practicing and playing.
Awesome. And just like let's cut through it, Jeff. What do you shoot? Like what's your handicap?
So right now I'm I think a 5.7 handicap is
Okay.
where I'm. So playing pretty decent golf still into my 40s. I'll take that right now. So
What about high school? Like what was your game like at that point?
yeah, so I went to state my junior and senior year. Junior year, I finished 17th in the state, and then my senior year, I finished 8th in the
Okay.
state. And so that was 6A. I went to Washburn Rural High School,
Okay.
6A state. So I figured finishing 8th in the state was a pretty big accomplishment. And back then, I was about a 2 or 3 handicap when I was a senior in high school. So
And
yeah.
have you ever gotten a hole in one?
I have 4 hole-in-ones, as a matter of
There
fact.
we go. I knew it was coming. That's awesome. And what's that feeling like? I've never had one. I've only had that backswing where I'm like, oh, that's it, baby. And then it's not.
And then
So
it's
like
not,
what
yeah.
is it like actually executing a hole in one?
Right. So my very first one, I think I was in 8th or ninth grade, and I was playing with a buddy of mine, and it was late in the evening. I'll never forget this. Was on hall 4 at Topeka Country Club,
Yeah,
142 yards. I had an
yeah,
8 iron. Still can
yeah,
remember to this day.
yeah.
I hit it into the sun, never saw it. And my buddy and I walk up to the green and we're like, where in the world is this ball? And then I look at the hole and it's sitting in there and you could see where it had just flown straight in. It had taken out some of the cup. And so I didn't even get to see my very first hole in one. But yeah, that was kind of the most memorable one, was my first one. And you know what? I went, sheesh, 20 plus years between my first and second hole in one. And I've had 3 in the last like 3 years. So it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Oh man, what's the juice like now since you've had it in the last 3
So,
years?
well, now it's a little bit different because the bar tab is a little bit different than it was when I was in 8th grade.
I, I was teetering around asking that. What
Yeah.
is how does that shake out? I've never
Yeah,
actually been
so
part of this.
we can't quite figure it out why especially my wife doesn't figure out why the person with the hole in one gets the big bar tab. So last year I had 2 within a 3-week span. And so she was like, "Jeff, no more hole in ones. The club bill is getting way too high when you do this." So the good news is we have now started a hole in one club. So basically, every member puts in like $2, and when someone gets a hole in one, they get, I don't know what it is, $300 or so to help go towards the part.
So you got the Janda Hole in One Scholarship Fund.
Yeah, it's great.
No, I mean that's amazing. You've gotten so many all in ones. You helped create a fund so nobody has to
Well,
pick up the
let's.
bar tab.
I don't know if it was all me, but yeah, certainly it doesn't help when you get 2 in 3 weeks. So my
Oh,
wife said,
that's
"Take a break."
great. Oh,
Yeah.
that's this is incredible. All right, we're off to a blistering start here, Jeff. So at this point, you're graduating high school. Do you have an idea of what you want to get into in college and where you're going to go?
I didn't. I knew business was something that probably would be majoring in. And, in golf, compared to, say, other sports where you go and get recruited, you have to actually do the recruitment yourself. You have to send out information to schools to say, hey, here's my bio, basically, in a
Yeah.
sense. And I remember my parents, we printed off a ton of these bios and would mail them to different schools, and mainly kind of in the Kansas area, and had visits with like Wichita State and Kansas Newman, I know, was another one, most of the JUCOs, and ended up going to Hutchinson Community College, where I kind of fell in love with the coach at the time, and really like the golf courses that are in Hutchinson. They had 2 at the time, really good golf courses.
Okay.
So that's where I went. Spent 2 years playing golf, and then just basically taking normal classes. I didn't really know what I wanted to do at
Yeah.
that time. Was just kind of focusing on the core classes those first 2 years. After Hutchinson, a lot of my teammates that I played with decided to go to Kansas State University. So I decided to kind of tag along with them, and didn't have much of affiliation with K State. I was actually more of a KU Jayhawk fan growing up, just being in Topeka. With the '88 national championship team was really fun to watch. But yeah, so that's where I went, and then kind of honed in, figured out that I wanted to major in marketing,
Yep.
and then got a minor in economics. And so that just kind of spoke to me after talking with some of the counselors there, and so that's what I ended up doing.
Okay. So now you own a recruitment company, right?
I do, yes.
Okay. And so you're getting out of high school and you're created like your marketing bio, right? Basically, that's what it is, right? Like here's the Jeff marketing
Yeah,
package.
correct.
And then you developed your lead list and learned to hunt to get in front of people to be able to get into the school, right?
Yeah,
That's what I'm
yeah.
hearing here.
Yeah, in fact, I've never really thought about it that way, but in a sense, I was kind of just marketing myself. I was almost like
Yeah.
marketing a candidate that I would do today to a business, and
Yeah.
so, I had my bio with all my scores and medals that I had won, and the 3 letters that I learned and that I got in high school golf. So yeah, I was sending that out, saying, hey, I'm ready to be on your team, and would love a chance to visit with you. So yeah, they kind
That's
of all tie
cool,
together.
man. Yeah. And the other thing, I mean, you look at, growing up on a golf course essentially, and then, being able to learn to market yourself, which is, I think, one of the harder skills to learn because it's easy to sell someone else and what they do, right? but to be able to promote yourself, but not in a way that's like off-putting to others is like this thin line, right? Like it's a balance.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to have confidence without the arrogance, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what you have to have. You have to show, hey, this is what I've been able to do, but I'm still going to be a team player. I'm still going to help my teammates,
Yeah.
and not being arrogant to where I'm above everybody else. I think that's what you really have to do when I was meeting with those coaches and hearing the different coaches' perspective on how players get treated and what the culture's like. That was also very important to me because at the end of the day, I still wanted to be a team player and making sure that we just never no nobody's better than anyone else at the end of the day. And so you've got to have that. You got to have the confidence. You can go out and hey, put me as the last guy. I'm a counting score, but also not be so arrogant to where then you alienate yourself from your teammates.
So it's funny because I remember like getting out of college and I was telling my dad, I'm like, yeah, I just don't like talking about these things I've done or like what I've gone. He's like, look, it's not bragging. You're stating facts. These are facts that have taken place. And so if you're not doing that, then you're basically wasting the good accomplishments that you've had.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of candidates in my 20 years of recruitment, and everyone needs an elevator pitch. I mean,
Yeah.
they really truly do.
Yep.
And you've got to have a couple minutes that you can just kind of talk briefly about your background. And like you said, it's not bragging. It's like, hey, this is what I did from 2010 to 2014, and so on. And so you need to have that elevator pitch. It's kind of in a sense selling yourself. And some people are better at it than others.
Confirmed. All right, Jeff. So you're at K State now. What's you're getting a marketing and economics degree.
Mhm.
What what's it like, man? What are you learning? What kind of
So
relationships you build? What are you up to at this point?
funny enough is, I played those 2 years of Hutchinson and, I could have potentially maybe tried to walk on at K State. But at that time, I almost just didn't even want to play golf anymore. And it just goes to show you those people who play Division 1 and go on to even the next level, just how much you have to love that sport or love whatever you're working on. Because, for me, it was a grind. And I was just kind of like, "God, I just want to break. I just want to be a normal student, is what I wanted to do." So when we went to K State, I was a normal student. I was like everybody else. I stopped having classes at 8 a.m. Because that's what I needed to do to make sure I was at practice at noon. So
Yep.
I started getting, these 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock classes, being able to sleep in. Once I
Sweet,
was
man.
of age, I was a normal student going to the bars all the time, trying to maintain that balance of having now quite a bit of freedom because it was pretty structured my first 2 years of college because of classes. I knew what I needed to take. And then with practice and everything else, when I got to K State, I had a little bit more freedom.
Yep.
And of course, I'm now rooming with my buddies, four of us, and having a lot of fun. So it was just kind of a matter of practicing time management,
Yes, it is.
which we still work on today, don't we?
It's never ending, right? Like
Yeah.
the self-work, some things just never change, right?
No.
Like the
No. Absolutely not.
fundamentals of the game
Yeah.
do not change.
Right.
One of my favorite Bill Belichick lines is somebody's asking him what he does in practice and taking a look at what they're talking about the schedule for practice and like blocking and tackling. You do that every practice. He's like, it would be incredibly irresponsible not to practice blocking and tackling in every practice because it happens on every play of every game. Right. And so back to self management of time, same story.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, trying to understand the time management of the classes, the homework that you got to do, the tests that you've got coming up. I think we're all really good at procrastinating, saying, "Oh, well, that test is until next Thursday." I've got 7 days to wait for that. So, and then all of a sudden, it sneaks up on you pretty quickly. And hopefully, all of us in college learn those lessons pretty quickly to say, shit, I'm kind of in trouble here a little bit. I've got two tests tomorrow, and one of I forgot about, and the other one I procrastinated on. So those are the lessons I think that you can learn a lot of times in college to that when you get out in the real world that you try to avoid. Does it still happen? Absolutely, but you try to avoid those lessons of stuff sneaking up on you now that you're not prepared for.
And the
So
goal is to be more proactive, but
yes, yes, I try to talk about that with my son now. I'm like, dude, don't put that off. Why are you waiting until Sunday night at 8 o'clock when you had all weekend to write this paper or do whatever else. And some say, hey, I work the best under pressure. Some people will tell me that. I'm like, to each their own, I guess.
This is a results driven world. Let's see if the proof's in the pudding here,
Right.
right?
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
So you're getting ready to graduate. As you're looking at it, did you have a pretty good idea on what you wanted to do after college?
For me, getting that marketing degree, all I wanted to do was work in the sports world. Man,
Okay.
what I ended up doing was writing an email and sending my resume to every NFL football team, and then writing to all of the universities kind of around the area: Nebraska, Missouri, Iowa State, Iowa, Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, you name it. I was writing letters saying, hey, I'm graduating with my marketing degree. I would love to come and work for your organization, because that's what I thought I really wanted to do. I love sports. It was kind of, I still watch a ton of sports today, and unfortunately I didn't hear back from a single one. And all of my other roommates and friends from college were, Sprint was coming in and hiring people by the
Yeah.
millions. Cerner was coming in at the time, hiring everybody.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and I was just kind of like, man, I just don't know if I want to go that route necessarily. And I
Wait,
tell,
Jeff, I want to make sure and hit on this. So most people don't like they like have a friend's parents or their parents kind of direct them to their first job, right? Or
yeah,
like the Cerner Sprint, just like half of my
yeah,
college buddies worked at Cerner
right,
and to discern. And you just like getting into college took this proactive approach of like, hey, here's where I want to go. And I think for some people that are listening to this, it's critical to understand what Jeff's talking about. You were physically writing letters on paper, right? You're
yes,
not talking about writing a letter in an email or a, MySpace or Facebook message or
right, yeah, no,
whatever. This is a written letter. Could
yeah,
right? Like that
yeah.
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, because I wanted to work for a sports team,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to do, and I figured, they're not gonna certainly come knocking on my door.
Well,
I
yeah.
needed I needed to knock on theirs, and it kind of related back also to that, trying to get a scholarship at a high school.
Yep.
My parents were heavily involved with helping me with that recruitment. And they said, unfortunately, in golf, coaches aren't coming around and trying to recruit you. And now that's probably changed all these years later. But back then it wasn't that way. And so they said, well, we've got to send out these letters, with your picture on it in your bio. And so when I was getting close to graduation, my senior year, that's why I'm like, well, that's what you do. You market yourself to what you want to do.
This is
So that's
beautiful,
what I did.
man, because it's you're shaping your mind early. Figure out what you want, go get it, make
Yeah.
it happen.
Right.
And most people don't have that mindset at any point in life. That's cool. Your parents led you to kind of develop that mindset and skill set too, right?
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, they encouraged me. That was a great thing. I had a lot of support at home saying, hey, if you want to go after that, then go after that. Not everybody needs to go and work for the Cerners and the Sprints. And so,
Yeah.
that's not, or Hallmark. Hallmark was another big one I remember too, back in the late 19s and in 2000. So,
Yep.
yeah, that's where everyone was going to work. And I just kind of didn't see myself doing that. And so I was trying to market myself. And you know what? I failed. And that's part of life. I didn't get, like I said, I didn't get a single response out of any of those. Back then, I was just, a dumb 22-year-old, 23-year-old thinking, oh, well, they'll call me back. They'll call me back. And of course that didn't happen. Right. And so I had to think of another avenue of what I was going to do after graduation is what I had to do.
You just worded it beautifully though. The you failed. Now failure's feedback, right? Like it's an opportunity to reassess where you're at and improve. And so many people look at failure and they get stuck, right? And what I'm hearing here is you're looking at it a little different.
Well, yeah, people can dwell on it and then say, well, I failed. And so now what do I do? Well, and I tell new grads this to this day. In fact, I just had a conversation with one last week. Someone asked me to do a favor and chat with a new grad. So I did. The getting your first job out of college is probably the hardest job you'll ever get. I mean, it really truly is, because everybody wants that 2 to 4 years experience when you look online. Well, you don't have it.
Yep.
So unless you get into a big company, like that, coming and recruiting a whole bunch of people,
Yeah.
or you're getting a specific engineering degree or accounting degree. But if you're just getting a
Yep.
regular business degree, getting that first job is the hardest one. And so I was that guy. That's how I know, because I lived it. I
Yep.
didn't have a job when I graduated, and so now I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? So I started networking, and luckily, I called my brother. I have an older brother, and he was in the investment banking world. He happened to know someone who knew someone who owned a camping company here in Kansas City and was looking for an
Yes.
grad marketing specialist. The
Okay.
company was Abbott Outdoor was the name of the company, and they were basically a conduit between the manufacturing and then say Walmart's and Dick's and things like that. So
Okay.
that's who they sold to. So the owner of the company basically called and said, "Hey, I kind of heard from that you might be interested in your new grad." And I came in and was offered the position for kind of a marketing specialist. I knew nothing about camping. We did not grow up going camping, and still to this day, I don't know as I've ever even slept in a tent. But during that time, after graduation, I got to know the camping world
Uh,
very, very quickly and could probably set up a tent quicker than most people because we had a showroom that,
So wait, have you camped yet?
no, no, I have not.
Okay, so I grew up also not going camping, and my wife did. So having young boys, they're like, "Hey, let's go camping." So my in-laws, my family has a huge farm in Northwest Missouri, and we went up there, and like the first couple times, you don't you don't realize all the sounds that nature makes throughout the night.
Yeah,
And what's
yeah.
funny is my brother came up there, and he's pretty in touch with all the frequency of the world. He woke up and he's like smiling ear to ear. He goes, "It's a high frequency area." I was like, "This guy's amazing." But it's so cool. But it's funny, you're right. Like if you didn't grow up doing it, if you haven't done it, it is like total shock to the system. And you've really got to like uncoil like all the noises and everything's different. It doesn't sound like you're in your bedroom or
No, it
even
does
a log cabin.
it does not. And yeah, the sleeping in either freezing cold temperatures or really
Yeah.
hot, sticky,
Oh, I'm out on that.
Kansas summers. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife has also been camping, and honestly, if we were going to go fishing, she would probably be the one that would be baiting the hooks and doing different things and handing me the pole because once again, I didn't do a lot of that growing up.
Man, Jeff, this is beautiful because we're on the same page. The worst thing that happens when I go fishing is catching a fish because I'm like,
Yeah, I
I
hand it
don't,
I hand it to my son who loves to fish. I'm like, "Hey, dude, get this fish off
you
because I
got
don't know
this,
what I'm
big
doing
boy.
at this
Yeah.
point in time." And all my friends go on these float trips, right? Yeah, that's not for me. I'm not doing the float trip thing. Just sitting in a tube, sweating, and then
Dude, it's
it's
always
sticky.
hot. It's
It
always
is.
hot. And there's nothing around. You always
Yeah,
forget something. Like, it's like, what?
yeah,
You get
yeah.
there and you're like, what? Why did I do that? My phone doesn't work out here. Like, what's going on?
No, I want air conditioning, running water, a nice bed, and people's like, "Oh, well, there's cabins. You can stop at cabins." I'm like,
It's always
I
got
don't know.
that mildewy vibe.
I'd rather be on the golf course.
This is great. My cheeks are starting to hurt. All right, Jeff. So you're at your first job.
Yep.
You can make a tent. You just haven't slept in
I can
one.
make a tent. I know all about the cast iron skillets and the
Beautiful.
the fans that go in and the propane heaters and
This is
yeah,
hilarious.
I know all that stuff and got the opportunity to go to one of the largest camping trade shows in Salt Lake City where I got to help design kind of our little booth that we had. So that was probably the coolest thing that I took away
Yeah.
from working at that company. It was awesome. And I know I didn't camp and I didn't sleep in tents, but I at least knew enough about them of the good tents and the bad tents.
Yep.
And really, when it says 4-person tent, it's really probably a 2-person tent. Those types of things. So I knew a lot. I knew enough to be dangerous as we were talking to people at that. There in Salt Lake. So.
I sense the danger. All right. So then from there, like what's next?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I enjoyed that job. I liked the people that I work with. I was having a blast. Unfortunately, the owner ended up selling it to a company out of Texas. And then all of a sudden I kind of found myself without a job. And I was like, huh, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And,
And
you know,
where are
and
you living at this time?
I'm in Kansas City at this time. So after
Okay.
graduation at Kansas State, moved to Kansas City, like, most people do. And, here I am in this apartment with this cool boxer dog that I have. And I'm like, now I got no job. What am I going to do? And so quickly, like everything else, you just started hunting and trying to find something. And I knew a lot of times when you had a marketing degree, sales kind of went along with, I remember having a lot of sales classes
Yeah.
And so I kind of figured, you know what, maybe I need to dip my hand in some sales. And not like that, now I'm only, 1 year out of college. Trying to find a job right out of college is hard enough. Well,
Yeah.
you've only been 1 year. It's
Yep.
even harder. So I figured maybe go get a sales job. So I ended up working for the Pitch weekly. And so old school people will remember the Pitch
Yep.
back in the day that this was a newspaper basically that talked about anything and everything going on in Kansas City, concerts, restaurants, I mean, you name it. And so that's what I did. I went to go work for them to basically be an account executive to sell advertisement to companies. And that, not easy, not easy job. That's really certainly where I cut my teeth in sales, is doing that job.
Okay, so what did you were a hunter before this, right? Like leaving high school, leaving, graduate from college, but what
Yeah.
what did you learn from sales role in selling advertising at
You're going to
that?
fail way more than you're going to succeed.
It's like baseball, man. Get in the
Yeah.
Hall of
Oh,
Fame,
yeah.
you need.
Absolutely. Batting 300, you're having a good year if you're batting 300.
Yeah.
Same thing in sales. In fact, it's probably not even 300 in sales. There, it taught me that, discipline, working hard, and just stay. And it's a grind to stay at it for sure. So, just because you don't have early success, doesn't mean that you're failing. You just got to keep at it. And so that's what I learned quite a bit in that time at the Pitch. I had a blast. I loved working there. A lot of fun people. You were in the know of everything in Kansas City. Anytime a new bar opened up, they always would advertise in the Pitch, just because that's where it was such a
Yeah.
heavily read newspaper at the time. So we would get to go to all these openings of new bars, and we kind of got treated, pretty well. So it was a fun job, for sure. So
Awesome. And like how what all would you sell?
it was just advertisement. That's all it was. So you go into company and say, hey, listen,
I mean, just different spots in the
different
in the
spots. Yeah. So
newspaper.
you could do a full page, quarter page, half page, 1/16th, I think was the smallest that we got, maybe 1/2 of a page. So that's what you were trying to do. You were trying to sell advertisement. So, and you could talk about the readership that we had, the demographics that we had, the income levels, the college educated. I mean, the demographics were very impressive, of the readers of the Pitch, and just how many people it reached every single week in Kansas City. And so yeah, that's what we did is I'd go and educate them and tell them why they need to be advertising, and not
So
just one time.
so selling advertising, you've got to. So I sold advertising for a sports radio station in Kansas City, and like anything, it's like the movie Tommy Boy, right? Like everybody
Oh
that sells, you suck bad at the beginning, and you got to just keep getting a little bit better,
yeah,
taking notes on your improvement, where and how you're going to lead a prospect to success by
yep,
becoming a client.
yep.
And the creativity that you have to attack it with was something that I think was one of the most valuable lessons I learned on, like, you're selling the sizzle, not the steak. So like for you, what are some of the creative things you learned in selling advertising?
I think you had to find a pain point for the organization, whatever it may be, the company, organization, whatever, and basically find that hole and kind of pick at that hole a little bit and say, okay, so what are you missing now? Right. That's what we'd always kind of talk about. You want to increase your sales. You want to increase your happy hour. You want to increase your lunches. Well, the way to do that is this XYZ advertising here because of the readership or whatever it may be. So you have to find that pain point, and how can you help them solve a problem? That's what that's what I learned, not only at the Pitch, but all my other positions that we're probably gonna be talking about as well,
Yes.
how that has continued, and even to this day, right now, as a matter of fact, you have to find that pain point, and how can you be part of the solution? You don't wanna add to their problems, whether it's financial or anything else, you don't wanna add to that, so you've
Yep.
gotta solve the problem for them. And you're right, in the beginning, you had the stupid script, and you read it, right? And eventually, you kinda
Uncomfortably.
comfortably. Even now, when you get those phone calls and someone's reading from a script, you're like, oh, God, I feel so bad for this person. Yes,
I
I'll hear
love
you
them.
out
I
because
love
I
them.
was a person, right?
Yes.
But you gotta learn your own kind of tone and the way you're communicating to them. You got to read the script so many times and then modify it to fit your kind of personality. And so, yeah, that's what you have to do. Is you have to find the pain point and how you can solve their problem.
So after the pitch, what's next?
So I've kind of always been an entrepreneur at heart a little bit. So I was working at the Pitch, and I had a couple of college buddies, and we got a wild idea to buy a limousine company.
Yes.
So, and funny enough, they happened to advertise the sale of the company in the Pitch.
That's how
And
it
so
works.
Yeah, I saw it and I called my two buddies and I was like, guys, there's this limousine company for sale. It's 5 limousines. I think, you guys can be part of investors. I'll be the owner operator. I'll run the whole thing. And so one thing led to another. All of a sudden, we owned 5 limousines, and now I'm learning the entire industry of about limousines. And yeah, that was crazy to run a limousine company and have to hire drivers and schedule these and payment and cleaning the cars and making and the insurance and everything that goes along fixing the cars. I got to know mechanics very well because a 30-foot car breaks down a lot with all the mechanical that goes into it. So I really kind of learned that industry inside and out. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. My buddies and I would take one of the if a limousine wasn't being used on a Friday night, we'd call one of the drivers and say, "Hey, you want to take us out?" And here I am, 24, 25 years old with some of the other owners, and we're going out on this limousine night on the town. We thought we were hot shit, driving around and pulling up to different bars and getting out. And because it didn't cost us anything except for just paying the driver.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we did. And
These
and
are
what I
good
find
times.
yeah, it was a great time, and I was single, and it was great, but it was a lot of hard work, I will say, and there was
Yeah.
some nervousness, during the times when you weren't no weeks where the limits weren't being rented. You're like, God. So once again, I needed to figure out how to get more business and to drum up more business and marketing and kind of everything else, which all goes back to sales and marketing at the end of the day. But I found myself going to the liquor store all the time to stock the limousines.
Mhm.
And, because I would, the people who were renting it say, "Hey, can we get a 12-pack of beer? Or can we get some wine in the limousine?" And, I always said, "Sure, we can do that for you." And, so then I got another crazy idea with these other owners to buy a a liquor store at the same time. So at 75th and Quivira, there used to be a liquor store next to the Dillon's grocery store, and, then we also found out that was for sale. And, yeah, we could talk about this for days probably, but
We're
yeah.
about to. All right. So I'm in a couple different M&A groups, right? And learning the acquisition space and what it's like for, whether you're buying a limo company or a liquor store or whatever. I mean, the due diligence, getting, going through and envisioning, looking at where the company is, but then where you would take it next. Like what did you learn through acquisition? I mean, this is really cool that at this time, you're 24, 25 and able to take over an existing company, look at what have they done well, where are there areas of opportunity, and then to go through it all yourself. Like what was that like?
Yeah, so when we acquired the liquor store, we thought it was a good idea, and it was a good idea on paper.
Yeah.
But what wasn't a good idea is me trying to work both. That was the thing. I could not run both. A lot of times of making sure all the vehicles were ready, and then also trying to be at the liquor store because
There's
the
one
phone would be
Jeff.
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's only one of me, and here I am helping a customer check out, and then I got the phone ringing, and it's the someone wanting to rent the limousine, and if you don't answer it, guess what they're going to do? They're going to go to the next company,
Yeah.
and at that time, the Yellow Pages. And I finally kind of went to the partners after some time, and I'm like, I can't continue to do both, and we probably can't afford to hire someone to run the limousine company. So we've got to make a decision here on what avenue do we want to go down. And the liquor store made way more sense to own and continue moving forward there. So we ended up marketing and selling the limousine company. I think, man, we had the limousine company for a couple of years, and then it overlapped for about 6 months. And like I said, that's when it was just those 6 months were just it was too much for me to try to run both. That's what I don't think we thought we could get a handle on it and say, oh well, Jeff can just run both. It wasn't the case, and it was suffering because of it. So
So there's a whole lot here. This is amazing. All right, so one, owning a limousine company, it's all about creating the experience, right? What did you learn about creating a great experience and then being able to market the experience and build off, a good uh a good time that you created for somebody?
yeah, really, number one, it speaks for itself to have clean limousine. And they walk in, glasses are clean, everything needs to be clean. You can't have someone walking into a dirty limousine. So that's just kind of first and foremost from an experience standpoint. But the other really important thing was having a good driver. That was more important than anything else because they may a lot of times would make the experience the best for for the individuals. Almost I get back to, we're going to talk about probably my healthcare days, but RNs make your stay at the hospital. They're the ones that are there, day in and day out, making sure that getting everything that you need. The driver's kind of the same way when it comes to the limousine, making sure that they know where they're going, that they can, drive down, streets that necessarily I would not be able to drive down without hitting every single thing, because you're talking about driving a 30-foot car here a little bit. So, and then also, making pivoting all the time. A lot of times they may have a schedule of what they want to do, but people, renting limousines say, what, we don't want to go here anymore. It's too packed. We're going to go to a different bar. And having a driver who knows exactly where that bar is, where to go, how to get there, and can pivot on a dime, that was super important to have that. And that made the good experience as well.
Something else like what's always cool about when I do these podcasts is you're able to see like connections along the way. So when you worked with the pitch and you got to know all the different bar owners and where the bars are, how did that play into your days as a limousine company?
Well, I think what you wanted to make sure that what was, once again, goes back to what's their need. Back then there was no Uber, right? So
No,
you
there
couldn't
was
just
not.
there was
There were
no
yellow
Uber.
taxis that
Yeah,
were
right. There was
slow
taxis.
and brutal.
Correct. Correct. And so a lot of times what I did is I went back to the times of, okay, think about what bars and where it's a lot of heavy activity, and say, hey, listen, if you've got a customer base that comes in on a regular, and a lot of times they want to take a cab home. Hey, why don't you just have them? Here's I own a limousine company. Why don't you maybe just have them call us, and we can be there. And if you get 6, 8 people to split that cost, it's damn near the same amount as what a cab would be, especially if it's just kind of a one-way trip. So that's what I kind of needed to start thinking about. So instead of
Yes.
renting out the limo from 5 o'clock in the evening till midnight, and letting them have it the whole time, is almost kind of what, can a limousine do several runs in one night if we needed to go pick up someone? At the time, Aqua was a big bar back then.
Yeah.
So, pick up someone there and take them home, and then maybe try to go down. So that's what I kind of needed to work on a little bit, instead of just trying to get these big chunks of rental,
Yep.
is maybe focus on smaller runs.
This is beautiful because you're able to assess, what's going well, what's not, but how can we get creative to create more opportunities? So
Yeah.
that's definitely it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at this time, you've sold the limousine company. You now are running a liquor store.
Hmm.
When you look back at these, experiences, back then and even now, part of what we're doing is working towards growing into our future self, right? And being able to like acquire a company, you know, did you in the beginning and then even after just see yourself as the one hustling, owning it and running everything? Or did you have like an internal, at any point were you looking at, okay, I'm going to need an internal succession plan to create, whether a general manager or whatever, to be able to come in and run the day-to-day operations so that you can look at different things?
Yeah, so good question. So the liquor store that we owned was kind of a mom and pop. It was a smaller store, and like I said, I was the owner operator of it. So I'm the one that hired, the workers for the evening and weekends and whatever else. And then of course I had silent partners who were investors
Yep.
at the time, because obviously I didn't have the cash flow to be able to buy the whole thing on my own. So
Yep.
I had some help, and one of the investors happened to be my parents.
Yeah.
So I kind of went to them and my partners. I'm like, hey, listen, this is great and all, but I don't see myself running this liquor store, for the rest of my life. So what can we do? And so we kind of thought about maybe buying a second location. And that became our focus at that point in time. Now, the way the Kansas liquor laws worked is you can only have one liquor license in your name, so you have to then try to find someone else to have the liquor license. And so, and then also location. We learned a lot about traffic, and people who remember back in the days, the liquor license and the beer license in Kansas was much different than it was in Missouri. You couldn't buy regular beer and wine and liquor at the grocery
Yeah.
store. That's why in Kansas, you always saw a liquor store right next to a grocery store because they would go in, buy their groceries, and then go right next door and buy their beer and wine and liquor.
Yep.
So that's what we kind of looked for next. We knew that this was a good store. We didn't want to have a brick and mortar. So we started to look around and we found one at Ranch Mart, which I believe was like at 80th and Mission or
Yep.
90th and Mission. I can't quite remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that gentleman was kind of retiring. It was a very successful store. He had a general manager that was already running it. So he could help me with that one while I continued to work the other one. And everyone was in agreement, looked at the books, looked at the financials, like this would be a great opportunity for me to increase my own salary, also increase, our exposure in the community, and then also, of course, help my partners as well. So it was a win-win for everything when we started looking at that. And the problem was when we almost got to the closing table, we found out the owner owed back taxes. And so if you assume a liquor license and a location, you assume those back taxes. And so that's what stopped us from ended up buying that liquor store at that time. And which was it was crushing to me because I was like, man, this would have been such a great store. I mean, the volume there was incredible. It was a great opportunity, but we were not going to be taking on those back taxes. There was no reason for us to do that. So we killed the deal.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and then it kind of went back to like, you know what, maybe it's time for me to do another avenue. Maybe it's time for me to get out of being a business owner and go work for corporate America or whatever you want to call it at that point in time. So then we kind of decided, hey, my run is over. I had a good one. And this was a blast for the last, 4+ years of owning a liquor store and a limousine
Wow.
company. And so we ended up selling the liquor store at that point in time as
So
well.
Jeff, you've hit on a lot here that definitely applies to what you do at the MCI Talent Group and help staff and recruit for companies is the diversity in what your roles have been. And in A space, when going to acquire a company, it's like another job, right?
Yeah.
Like the amount of in I would say emotional investment, like you brought up, it was crushing that didn't go through. But because you start to visualize, okay, now we're gonna have a general manager. Like my role is gonna shift. I'm gonna be able to make more money. Then we can scale, grow, build these systems and all this good stuff. And one, even getting to the opportunity to find the liquor store that you were gonna acquire for the second one. That in itself, the search is where
Yes.
a lot of people get lost and give up just because of the frustration and the toll it takes. Like, and being able to have your qualifiers to say, okay, look, this doesn't fit my box. I got to walk away and have that discipline. Could you talk a little bit about just like that part?
Yeah, so, luckily I had partners as well that I could lean on and
Mm,
and talk to. A lot of them were investors in other things as well. So when it came to, looking at location, we wanted to make sure that was because it's always about location, location, location. And so because there were other liquor stores that were for sale, of mom and pops that were retiring, and I didn't want to have another mom and pop store that I had already. We
yep.
wanted to look at something a little bit different, something a larger scale. Something, I mean, I think that store did 3 times the business that the one that we owned. And so
Mhm.
it was really kind of looking, and you just have to look under every rock. You got to talk to people. Hey, we're looking to buy another liquor store. If you hear anything, let us know. And that's kind of how this one at Ranch Mart came to us. That we were it was a good location. And then once we looked at the books and had my other business partners get more than one eyeball on it, I think that what was huge about
Yes.
having a partner, which
Yep.
is why I have a partner now at MCI. Is because it's nice to have more than just a couple of eyeballs looking at it. So we collectively looked at it and decided, hey, you know what? This is a good opportunity, and we want to move forward with it. And there were lots of others that we did not. There was not, like every 25-year-old too, we kinda got the idea of maybe owning a bar, you
You
know?
dodged a bullet there, man.
So, we even looked at one and visited and, decided not to go with it. So it was nice to have some level heads and say reality of like, "Okay, can we really make this work at the end of the
Yeah.
day?"
Well,
And
at
we knew when we
25 to go through these exercises and
Yeah,
actually do them and run companies and staff and
yeah,
market and
yeah.
sell and fulfill and all on and on and on. I mean, what incredible experiences, man.
Yeah, I've always told this to everybody. That was my master's degree. I never went and got a
100%.
master's degree, but owning those 2 businesses for that, 4+ years was truly my master's degree.
Yep.
I learned more there than you could ever think of, and running everything you could imagine, doing all the books and all the accounting, doing all the marketing, doing all the payroll. I mean, everything that I had to learn during that time, that was my master's degree, without a
I
doubt.
love it. I love it. Okay, so what was the exit like from the liquor store?
Yeah, so we advertised it and found a couple who wanted to purchase it. They were kind of wanting one of the it was a married couple. One of the spouses had a full time corporate job, doing well, and it kind of gave the other spouse something an opportunity to do. They saw that it was it kind of ran itself in a sense.
Mhm.
It got to that point where you weren't going to grow very much because it was such a small liquor store, so
Yeah.
it wasn't going to happen. But so they came in and looked at it and decided they wanted to buy it. So we sold it. And then, of course, now I'm back to what does Jeff do again?
What wait. This is a beautiful cliffhanger. What does Jeff do
What does Jeff
next?
do next? Now he is, he worked for the camping company and then he worked for Pitch and now he owned two businesses. Now
Yep.
I'm back to I got to find another job,
And Jeff
right?
still hasn't been camping, by the way.
Instead, and he has not been camping yet at that point in time. So,
I mean, with a limo company, I would think you would accidentally camp in that
well, I found some
for a
interesting
different
things.
podcast.
Yes, absolutely. That's a way different podcast. Some of the things I found in
It's
those
great.
scenes at the end of the night
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah. I guarantee it. All right. So what's next after selling the
yeah.
liquor store?
What's next is I wanted to find a career at that point in time. I think for me, I'd kind of been doing a couple of different things, and I'm like,
Yep.
you know what? Now maybe it's time for me to go in corporate America, quote unquote,
Yeah.
at that time. And so I'm really just kind of put myself out there. Back then, you put your resume out on Monster and Career Builder and different things, and advertise yourself. And I ended up interviewing with a company called Morgan Hunter, which is an executive search firm.
Okay.
And I got to know the owner had interviewed me, and then the gentleman that I'd be working with. Morgan Hunter was one of the largest search firms in Kansas City at that time.
Okay.
There was 30
And
plus.
it was local. It was just
It was
local.
local. Yeah. Morgan Hunter is a local company, not nationwide like a Robert Half or something like that, that some people may know. But
Okay.
went there and talked to some of the other people in the accounting and finance group of where I'd be working. And I was like,
Mhm.
man, sourcing for candidates and things like that sounds like something that I would really enjoy doing. It's a little bit different sales wise than what it was, say, for the pitch. It was a different kind of selling.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I ended up taking a job with them and did accounting and finance recruitment for almost 4 years, and then the market crashed. If everyone remembers, in late '08 and '09.
Yep. I bought my first house in '07.
Yeah, yeah. So you were having fun too, like everybody else.
Yeah.
We were losing what 500,000 600,000 jobs a month in this country at that time in 2009. Nobody was hiring. I'm working for a staffing firm, right? After being there for almost 4 years and really enjoying my time, cutting my teeth in recruitment, learning from the owner Jerry about, hey, this is what makes a good recruiter, and I did. I learned a ton at that point in time, but I knew, my wife was 100% commission as a real estate agent.
Mhm.
I was 100% commission. 2009, something had to change. It was just too tough
Real
for us.
quick, what when you were recruiting for accounting and financial, like who is it that you were recruiting and how are you placing them?
I mean, everything from a accounts payable person all to a staff accountant to a senior accountant, accounting manager, controller, everything. We worked the entire spectrum at that point
Yeah.
in time, but we really kind of just focused on perm placement
Yep.
at that time. And so Morgan Hunter had a great name in the industry and in Kansas City, had been around for a long time. And so people knew who you were. And once again, there was a couple other people in the accounting and finance division that I worked with. So, we kind of worked collaboratively as a group.
Yeah.
One may get a client, and then you may go and try to find the candidate and make that marriage happen there, or vice versa. Go out and get a client, and then one of your other teammates might source a candidate for you. So it was really kind of a lot of collaboration working there. And like I said, we worked every job under the sun that had anything to do with accounting and finance. We
What
worked.
what did you learn about like finding the right candidates? Like how did you continue to grow in that to find the best
Yeah. So
placements?
yeah, when someone's paying you a fee to find somebody, you don't want to just throw something against the wall to see if it sticks. And just because someone looks great on paper, cool your jets.
It's like
Because once you
searching for
talk,
a company to acquire.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. because once you get them on the phone or talk to them in person, at that time we try to meet everybody in person way before Zoom and things like
Is Zoom considered in person now?
pretty much. So, yeah, I mean, you would talk to them and you're just like, man, you are not the right fit culturally,
Yeah.
for this organization. So that was kind of the thing that you needed to learn is a lot of times companies wanted someone who had the foundation that they were looking for, but culturally, how are they going to fit? Because you
Yep.
don't want a water cooler disaster to join your organization. That's what you don't want because they can come in and they may be the best staff account, but man, they're going to cause a lot of drama. And so
A
those are things.
water cooler disaster.
Water cooler disaster is
That there's something to note, people out there. A water cooler disaster is around the
well,
corner
I mean,
if you're not
there's not
getting the
much
right
water.
people.
Companies don't have water coolers anymore where people stand around and talk like they used to back in the,
They got
back in the.
refrigerators.
Now there's the refrigerator or
Yeah.
the finely distilled water that they have out of their pump. But yeah, back then you kind of sit around their water cooler and you're like, oh my god, did you see what Jenny did today, or something like that. So that's where kind of that term water cooler disaster.
Roger that. Okay,
So
cool. And so at this time, what's next in your growth pattern?
yeah, I mean, so I ended up, I was helping people, or companies find candidates, and I was talking to a lot of different candidates, and so I was kind of going through my Rolodex. Okay, what client would I want to go work for, right? That I've worked with, and so that's kind of what I started, how my mind worked at that point in
Yeah.
time. And I ended up seeing a senior account position at Children's Mercy Hospital, and I was like, man, that would be pretty cool. Now I grew up in a household where my father was a hospital administrator, my mom was the director of dietetics, and I said to myself, I would never work for a hospital as long as I live, because all I ever heard growing up was healthcare this, healthcare that, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh my god, do I really want to go work for a hospital? But
Yeah.
Children's Mercy had such a great name in the community, great. Um, and what they do is incredible. So I saw the posting, and I saw an individual posted named Molly Weaver. She was the director of talent acquisition, and I cold called her instead of applying. I cold called her,
I love it.
and I
I've done
said,
this.
"Hey, this is who I am. I'd like to try to remain confidential because of my job, but I'm interested in your position." And she, said, "Hey, why don't you come on down and let's chat?" We ended up chatting, I think, for the first time, like 3 hours. I mean, it was later in the day. By the time we got done, it was dark outside. And come to find out, she was looking for an in-house executive recruiter. Their search firm fees were pretty high at the time, and they were wanting to reduce them. And so she kind of was like, okay, this guy cold called me. Everyone
Love it.
else was just applying or sending me an email.
Yeah.
And so he kind of has the background and the skill set that I'm looking for. And so one thing kind of led to another. I ended up taking that job in the very first part of 2010 after going through 2009 and the dip in the market. I took that job very early in 2010. And yeah, and that's how my true corporate America my career started.
Yeah, and so who were you recruiting? What was your placement like? And what was it like you were placing within the hospital,
Within
right?
Children's Mercy, yeah, so
Yeah,
I
so
was I was an in-house recruiter.
how was that different going from placing in companies that you weren't part of to an in-house recruiter?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing is, when you work for a search firm, you have to get to know a whole bunch of companies and what their culture is and what they're looking
Yeah.
for and what they do and they don't like, so quite a bit different. So then once I joined Children's Mercy, that's what I had to learn. I had to learn Children's Mercy backwards and forwards
Yep.
and understand everything. And I remember Molly sat me down and said, "You've never been in a corporate recruitment job. You've only done search firm recruitment.
Yep.
It's way different because, for me, I would find the candidate, interview them, and send them over to the company. That's when they would kind of take it from there, and they would take it from the interview, the background check, the drug screen. I mean, they did all that stuff, the
Yeah.
onboarding. I had to learn all that at Children's. So she actually gave me a department that was high volume recruitment.
Okay.
And so I was churning through a lot of applicants and hiring a lot of people. So I understood how the system worked on the inside recruitment job because I
Yep.
was always kind of that outside recruiter. And so that's what I kind of did my first, 6 to 9 months. That's what she had me do. And
Okay.
then after that is when I really moved into the core recruitment that I did for almost the next 12 years there, was kind of these hard to fill jobs. They called me kind of the kitchen sink. So anything that didn't belong somewhere just was thrown onto Jeff's sink, basically, in a nutshell, and that I would do it. So, everything from a biostatistician to a, pediatric cardiac sonographer to PICU nurse to director of nursing, director of supply chain, director of construction,
Yeah.
you name it across the board. It was kind of an inch deep and a mile wide, is because a lot of these jobs I'd only work once every, several years.
Yeah.
Where you have a lot of other inside recruiters who are just doing nursing, saying, or just doing allied health, where they're working the same job. A lot of them, I was working one-off jobs, and that's what I did for a long time at Children's and working for Molly
Well,
Weaver.
so there's you brought up something that I think is totally different components, right? So in your previous role, it was turn and burn, right? Like I got you the right candidate. Now you go over
Right,
here to
right,
your company, the
right,
different four walls. Then to be at Children's Mercy, where you're bringing them in to to your home, right?
right,
And
right.
where you're totally accountable and got to live with every
Correct.
day who you hired. But
Absolutely.
you also mentioned onboarding. So recruiting and hiring is one skill. Onboarding is like welcome, right? Like it's a totally different skill, and creating the experience to get this person motivated, excited, like their first day, first week, first 90 days are huge, their first year, right? And so being able to, how would you help, one, find the right person? So you find the right person, you get them in, you hire them. Then onboarding. What was that like? And learning.
Yeah. So oddly enough, the recruiters played a fairly decent sized role in onboarding the first day. After the second day, it was really then kind of up to the hiring manager
Yep.
to say, "Hey, listen, you need to make this person feel good. Don't just throw them on a desk and say, 'Hey, I'll see you. Here's some training manuals to read over.'"
Here's the
Take
bathroom.
right, exactly. So we tried to educate the hiring managers on what to do after the person starts. But
Yep.
that very first day, the first impression is huge, right? So a lot of times the recruiters would be there on the first day welcoming these new employees. A lot of times, you'd hire them. So for me, some of them I relocated from different parts of the country, and I may not have seen them for 6, 8 weeks. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I remember you. But making sure that they had a good experience. And a lot of times we would give them t-shirts, Children's Mercy t-shirts on their very
Yep.
first day, or we would give them something else just to make them feel welcome. That's what you ultimately want the very first day when they get there,
Yeah.
because you want them to be like, they're happy I'm here. And I think where a lot of companies fail is that onboarding, whether it's the first
Cheers.
day or the first 6 weeks. Man, you can lose a really good employee in that first 6 weeks if you don't set them up to be successful. And I will say, man, my mentor, Molly Weaver, like I said, and you're going to hear her name probably a lot, is she distilled, you've got to have a good, not only candidate experience from the beginning,
Yeah.
but even after start. You can't just say, oh, well, they've said, yes, we're good to go.
Yes.
No,
Go get
that
them.
very day, you've got to make sure that they're having a good experience during that.
It's huge. And I mean, being able to, well, one, then you're training the managers on like how to create a great experience once they leave your initial onboarding, right? But being able to, like I've worked with a lot of companies where it's okay, what's the recruitment? Okay, we got that down. Cool. What's the onboarding? Okay, cool. Then after that, what's considered doing a good job? Because if you have top level talent people and they come in, they don't want to just aimlessly work really hard. They want to know what they're going to achieve, because high achievers don't like mediocrity and mediocrity doesn't like high achievers. So if you're not setting the here's where scoring a touchdown is, then they're going to get frustrated and you're going to lose them quick, right?
And that's why I think those 90-day evaluations are so important. I know we did them at Children's, and then also at St. Luke's. I would kind of do the 90-day eval and kind of go over of not only um, how you have done as a new employee,
Yeah.
but how is the employer done for you? That was
Yes.
also really
And the
important to
managers.
talk
Yeah.
about. It's like, hey, what are you needing from me that I'm not giving you these first 90 days? Where are we missing the boat? And that's where I would encourage all new employees is to be honest at that point in time. Because if you're not honest then it's going to sit there and just fester for a long time, that if you're not getting something you want, they're asking you that question for a reason. So be
Yep.
honest with them. And hopefully you've built a really good relationship with your new manager at that time, that you can be honest.
Yep.
Be honest. Say, hey, yeah, I'm kind of needing this, or I would really like this tool, or I am reaching out to a certain other group and I'm not getting kind of the answers that I need. Is there something that you can help me out with that? Don't just say everything is fine, you're doing a great job if they're not. But if they are, let them know as well. Let them know the
Yeah.
positives. Don't just bring up all, hey, I need this, this, and
Yeah.
this. Say, hey, so far this has been great about this. This has been great about that. Or you've really helped me with this, but I could use a little assistance in this area. So there's kind of that balancing act of making sure you're talking about the positives and some of the things that you need during that evaluation.
This is gold. And what else happens too is the manager or leader, or owner, executive, whoever's hiring, when you hire someone that's high energetic, excited, that's a high achiever, and they come in, now you actually have to get better because they're going to
Yeah.
push the limits on growth, and you got to be ready to embrace that and stay ahead. Otherwise, like, that's another area where things can go south.
Right. Right. Well, good leaders hire people who are better than them.
Absolutely.
Right.
Which makes them continue to grow as leaders.
Correct. Because if the people below you are doing a great job, it's going to look good for you. The problem is a lot of leaders out there are scared to do that because they feel like they might get shown up. Right. So unfortunately, sometimes leaders don't always hire the best person because they're scared of them. But good
Yep.
leaders will hire people who are better than them and different from them as well, that they can bring a
Yes.
different skill set. So,
This
and that's
this is
something that I've
gold.
always encouraged. In fact, with one of my clients just yesterday, I sent over three candidates with vastly different backgrounds for this construction position that I'm working because I didn't want to just send over three of the same exact shoebox type people. I wanted to
Yeah.
allow him to look at three different types of backgrounds and say, hey, I'll talk to all three, or maybe I'll only talk to one of them, but give some people some variety because you don't just want to hire the same exact person on your staff. If I can recommend hiring leaders, bring people in with different skill sets because it's going
Yep.
to make you a more well-rounded team than everybody who has 4 to 6 years experience in this kind of industry, whatever it may be. And so I try to encourage a lot of leaders to hire outside of healthcare
Yep.
because healthcare is notorious for being behind the times a little bit, whether it would be in, you know, different tools or different systems or
Yep.
whatever else. So bring someone in who's maybe worked in a different industry and they can have another set of eyeballs as well.
Fresh
That
perspective is a beautiful thing,
yeah,
and a lot of times an advantage.
yeah. Absolutely.
The "we do things the way we've always done" like makes my head explode literally every time I've ever heard it. Okay, Jeff. So what's next after Children's Mercy?
Yeah, so after Children's, went to St. Luke's, spent almost, a little over 4 years with them, and my role kinda switched a little bit when I left Children's, and once again, I was kinda doing everything that just fell under that hard to fill blanket.
Yep.
Then when I, once again, kinda cold called the, leader over at St. Luke's and just had a conversation with her, and she said, "Jeff, I do all the director level and above recruitment." And I'm like, "Heather, you're the director of talent acquisition. You don't have time to sit there and do that recruitment." She's like, "Yes, I know." And I said, "Perfect. I'm coming to you at the right time." And so one thing led to another. I ended up joining on St. Luke's to handle all of their director level and above recruitment because once again, before they would use a lot of search firms. She was, just overwhelmed with all of her day to day responsibilities, plus doing director, senior director of VP recruitment.
Yep.
So I came in and took all that off of her plate, and it was perfect. It's exactly kind of what I wanted to do,
Yep.
and was there for about 4 years, and 2 years into our journey, BJC Health out of St. Louis, a lot of people know them as Barnes Jewish Christian, but BJC Health merged with St. Luke's, and that happened a couple of years ago. And so then some things changed within the organization, a lot of positives, but some of the culture changes had happened. I started reporting to somebody new, which I really enjoyed. Reporting to that individual kind of gave me a different perspective, exposed me to a lot more new things from the recruitment standpoint, but I was
Yeah.
still doing that kind of hard to fill director level and above as
Mhm.
well after I joined St. Luke's.
Okay. And from St. Luke's, what's next? I mean,
Yeah.
you've done it's basically everything under the sun on the
Yeah.
recruitment and talent
Yeah.
advising.
Yeah, so it was interesting. My first part of my career, I kind of had these chop, chop, chop jobs fairly quickly.
Yeah.
One with Abbott Outdoor, back moving to Dallas, and then worked for the pitch for a couple
Yep.
of years, and then went and owned a business for almost 4 years, and then worked for Children's for 12 years for quite some time,
Yeah.
and then went and joined St. Luke's. And I had some people around me after 4 plus years. I had some people ask me, going, "Why haven't you opened up your own search firm?" I had a lot of people ask me that in the
Yeah.
industry. And so, not only that, Molly Weaver, once again, going back to her, she had
Yep.
opened up her own HR consulting gig. I continue to have lunch with her probably quarterly, and she'd be like, Jeff, I've opened up my own business. This is great. I think you could nail it if you opened up your own search firm. And I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, we'll see. Who knows? Because everybody loves the security blanket of having a regular paycheck, right? But caveat is it's not always secure because you never know what could happen with your job. So keep that in mind for
There
yourself.
is no actual secure
There
paycheck.
is no security blanket. So, and I watched my wife now be a real estate agent for 20 plus years. She's absolutely killing it, doing well. So I'm watching her, and she's owning her own business, and got to do a lot of things with the kids when with our son when he was younger that I got to miss out on a little bit.
Yeah.
And then one day about in February of 2025, I was getting my haircut at Scissors and Scotch. Sat next down to this guy, and he's like, "So what do you do?" And I said, I'm a corporate recruiter for St. Luke's. I do their high level recruitment." And he's like, "Man, do they have any idea what you bring to the table and what you're worth?" And I'm like, "I would like to think so." And he's like, "I'm going to tell you, they probably don't." And so, but I do believe that my previous boss knew exactly what I brought to the table because we
Yeah.
had a great relationship. But
Yeah.
the one thing kind of led to another, and he happened to own a nurse staff agency that he was about ready to sell. He wanted to open up another search firm, a perm placement type place that I was interested in,
Yep.
and I was like, man, I'm meeting this guy for a reason, right? Everything happens in life, and so I'm meeting him. I've got Molly over in my ear telling me I need to do this. I've got other people around me. Even my parents are very supportive. My wife is very supportive,
Yeah.
and I've got this guy going, dude, let's start a search firm together. So him and I got together almost every other Tuesday for like the next 8 months
Yeah.
in the evening times, putting this all together. And we decided to go ahead and launch MCI Talent Group Search. And he's got a big healthcare background. I have a big healthcare background. What's funny is the industries that we've already signed aren't healthcare. But
It's how it
I've always
works.
said, recruiting is recruiting is recruiting.
Yep. Blocking
Tell
and
me what
tackling.
Absolutely. Back to the block and tackling again. Tell me what you're looking for. And you know what? As long as that's accurate, I'll go out and help you find it. And so that's what we've been able to do. We've only, we opened our doors, 5, 6 weeks ago. So we're still pretty in the infancy stages. So learning a lot in that time, being my own business owner, and what it takes to do that. But it's been unbelievable. It's been fantastic.
Awesome. So could you talk a little bit about just how MCI Talent Group works with companies now?
Yeah. So for us, it always goes back to, again, that pain point. I said that when I learned the days at Pitch about what's an organization or what a company or what restaurant, what's your pain point? Is it lack of lunch traffic? Is it lack of, happy hour traffic? So helping them solve that continued all the way through all my jobs in terms of recruitment. And that goes back today. Right now, a lot of the clients that we work with, unless you have someone who has a pretty unique skill set of being able to source and search,
Yeah.
a lot of those jobs get left unfilled, or they end up filling it somehow, or two people try to take it over, and then those people are overworked and stressed. So I think we're myself, my partner, and I, John, what we can do is help you, fill those roles that are kind of a pain in your side, that don't grow on trees, that require you to look under rocks and do the sourcing. And so that's what we've been able to do. Luckily for us, in such a short time, in the 5, 6 weeks, we've been able to sign several big clients, and are helping them at this point in time.
That's exciting. So what's it been like? You owned two companies before,
Yeah,
getting back in the saddle as an
yeah.
entrepreneur. What's that
Yeah.
been like?
This experience is way different than when I was
Yeah.
24, 25, 26, right?
Yep.
I am, that's 20 plus years later. I have learned a lot. I have been
Yes.
on the corporate recruitment side. Now I'm on the search firm side, just managing things completely different, way different than it was back then. And then those were also kind of more storefront type retail. So this is obviously way different than retail. So owning this is completely different. But I wrote an article couple of weeks ago on my LinkedIn page that said I have kind of a sense of calmness about me now, and it's kind of weird to describe because I have that calmness now of, if I want to go and I said watch my son play a golf tournament,
Yep.
I can go and do that and have that sense of calmness. I took him to the University of Nebraska for his college visit a couple of weeks ago and was able to drive up there and, not be freaking out about, oh, am I missing something at work? Is someone going to be upset with me at work because I didn't get this email or phone call? So is that kind of sense of calmness that has happened over the last, month plus since we've started this. And I've kind of said it's almost re-energized me. I love now sitting down even the evening time and hunting, because that's what I at the end of the day, that's what I really enjoy doing is hunting and finding those candidates to help those clients. Because man, when you produce a candidate that the client's like, holy mackerel, this is awesome, that is super rewarding for me. And I love that at Children's. I loved it at St. Luke's, and I love it even more now at MCI being able to provide that to that client.
This is great, Jeff, because I mean, like in sharing your journey, your story, you the hunting to get into college, right? Sending out what your bio was and figuring out what you're looking for and going to get it. Graduating from college, while it didn't turn out the way that you thought, you still took it and you got after it, right? Like, hey, here's who I want to work for. Here's what I'm going to do to get there. And now that you're own your own company and helping people grow their company to get the right people, and anybody that owns a company, has been a leader or manager in an organization, knows the difference between having the right people and what did you call it, the water cooler
The water
disaster?
cooler disaster.
We don't need those. And so what advice would you give somebody that's hiring, whether they own their own company, they're an executive or a manager, to bring on the right people?
Yeah. So a couple of things. Once again, going back to just because someone's good on paper doesn't mean they're going to be good in real life. And asking a lot of times just asking the strict, tell me about a time when, those normal recruiting questions or interview questions that people have done for years and years and years. My recommendation is have a conversation with the candidate, because that's what you're going to really find out what they're all about.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are good at interviewing. Jeff, tell me about a time when you struggled with a project and how'd you handle it? Man, people know how to answer that very well. And you're gonna be like, that is a great answer. But when then they get in, maybe they're not as good at solving the problems because they knew how to answer that question, but they don't necessarily know how to solve the problem. So
Yep.
I always say, just have a conversation with people. Yes, you need to kind of find out a little bit about their background and what makes them tick and those types of things and how they have encountered some problems, but have a conversation because that's what you're going to learn about whether or not they're going to be a culture fit at the end of the day. Because I'll go back to the water cooler disaster thing again. You can hire someone who is so technically sound, can do the job eyes closed, but if they bring a bad negativity, it's going to be just spread throughout your company. And the smaller your company is, the worse it's going to get if you've got one
Yeah.
bad person, because it's really hard to fire somebody these days. You've got to have all your ducks in a row to let somebody to terminate somebody. So making sure that they come in, and if they have the foundation and the skill set that you can teach them and you love their personality, I would rather have that person on my team than someone who already knows exactly what they're doing but may not have the best personality and a culture fit.
And another thing, Jeff, so you got a rapidly growing company. At what point should they begin recruiting and hiring, and when they need it, or to be proactive and be ahead of it?
Yes, the biggest thing is making sure that your staff is not overworked. I think when you have to start looking at your staff and they're getting stressed, mistakes start to happen. Those types of things is when you know that okay, I'm pushing my staff farther than they need to. We need to start looking at hiring. And I think those are things that you as a leader, you should see the train coming down the tracks a little bit. If you know you've got a project that's coming, especially say for construction, if you just signed a huge client and it's going to be, a project that you're working on, you need to have the appropriate people in place before that project even kicks off. Because if you wait and you've already, broke ground, then you're trying to hire people, you're going to be late to the game and you're going to stress your people out. And
Yep.
then they're going to end up leaving and it's going to even cause a bigger issue for you. So to me, that's when you got to start looking at, hey, when it's right time to hire, is my staff comfortable, good work life balance. That's what people want in their 20s and 30s and 40s right now is work life balance, spending time with their kids on the soccer field and baseball diamonds, and not feeling bad about saying, "Hey, it's 3:30. My kid's got a game at 4 or 4:30. I need to go," and not just getting the death stare as they walk out the door. Companies need to start treating their employees with respect, but also making sure that they get respect in return as well. The employee also has a responsibility back to the employer as well. It's a two-way street.
Absolutely. So, Jeff, to wrap up, how could anybody that's looking to hire, recruit, how could they find you at the MCI Talent Group?
Yeah, it's mcitalentgroup.com is our website. But of course, I am all over LinkedIn. I try to post as much as I possibly can. It's
Yep.
where I live. So feel free to please, connect with me. All my contact information is on the LinkedIn page. But once again, MCI Talent Group is our website. And yeah, we're, like I said, just in the very beginning stages, but man, it's been a wild ride in such a short time. And I cannot wait to see where we are in about a year. So we'd love to check in with you back then when that happens there, Nick. So
Awesome. Well, Jeff, thanks for sharing your story and being on the Business Growth Journey podcast, man. It was awesome.
you got it. Hey, I appreciate it. Take care.